It started with a shovel. Not a jackhammer, not a team of builders, not even a permit. Just me, the desert sun, and a vision. And a HOA that thought they ran the neighborhood like some sort of suburban dictatorship. I live in the kind of community where the grass has to be exactly 2 inches tall, your garbage bins must be hidden behind a cedar-planked enclosure, and God forbid you paint your front door a color not on the approved palette. That was my first warning, when I painted mine obsidian black. They said it disrupted the visual harmony of the cul-de-sac. I said it looked cool. But the real war started when I dug a hole, a big one. See, I've always been obsessed with ancient civilizations, Egyptians especially. There's something deeply powerful about the geometry of the pyramids, the mystery of the Sphinx, and the unapologetic permanence of stone. In a world where people obsess over temporary things, latest phones, fleeting likes, and digital dopamine, I wanted to build something eternal, something with legacy. So I bought some limestone blocks, had them shipped in. No big deal, right? Wrong. 3 hours after the first delivery, I hear the distinct clack of high heels and the unmistakable sound of a righteous clipboard being smacked against a palm. That's when Karen showed up. Not her real name, but trust me, she was a Karen. Short hair, oversized sunglasses, HOA badge clipped to her blouse like she was the sheriff of a dusty western town. She strutted across my yard like she owned it and squinted at the stone blocks. "What's all this?" "History," I replied, not looking up. "This isn't on your approved architectural plan." "It's not architecture. It's an expression of human civilization, a tribute to the ancestors." She wasn't impressed. "It's disrupting the HOA aesthetic." Ah, there it was, the sacred phrase, the aesthetic. That imaginary vishu, all harmony that must never, ever be broken. "It's limestone," I said, "same color as the houses around here." "That's not the point. It's a pyramid." "It will be," I said. "Just you wait." I thought that'd be the end of it. But no. Karen wasn't the type to walk away quietly. 3 days later, I got a notice. Not a letter, not a warning. A full-blown cease and desist, signed in blue ink with all the passive-aggressive venom of someone who once lost a bake-off and never recovered. They gave me 48 hours to dismantle the foundation of my pyramid or face fines, legal action, and possible banishment from the community newsletter. So I did what any rational person would do. I built faster. Neighbors began to notice. Some smiled, others whispered. Karen lurked in the background like a Disney villain, watching from behind her blinds with binoculars and a notepad. But here's the thing. I wasn't just stacking rocks. Every block I laid carried weight, not just physically, but symbolically. With each layer, I was reclaiming something modern life had buried, a sense of purpose, a reason to build, to create without permission. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because if you challenge an empire, you'd better be ready to unleash a god. So while Karen filed complaints, summoned emergency HOA meetings, and sent photos to city inspectors, I got busy working on Phase 2, the Sphinx. Now, building a pyramid is ambitious, but sculpting a mythical guardian beast in your suburban front yard? That's war. I hired a stone artist off Craigslist, paid in cash, told him, "Give me something ancient, majestic, and just intimidating enough to keep certain people from stepping on my lawn again." The Sphinx took shape. Its eyes glowed amber at night, thanks to some cleverly placed solar LEDs. Its paws rested on a stone slab etched with hieroglyphs I copied from an old museum brochure. Its vase, ice, modeled loosely after my dog, Pharaoh. I installed it overnight. The next morning was chaos. Karen marched up, lips pursed so tight they could crack granite. She pointed at the Sphinx like it had personally insulted her ancestry. "This is an egregious violation of HOA policy." "Actually," I said, sipping my coffee, "page 46, subsection D allows for personal sculptures under 6 feet. This is 5'11". She was stunned, but not defeated. "It's not about size, it's about intent. You're undermining community standards." "No," I said, "I'm redefining them." That afternoon, she called an emergency vote to have my pyramid and Sphinx removed. She even brought in a so-called cultural expert to claim my monument was historically insensitive. I countered with a live stream tour I called the Suburban Pharaoh Project. where I gave the neighborhood an impassioned speech about the forgotten art of monument building and the power of physical legacy. Thousands watched. It went viral. And suddenly, the HOA wasn't just battling a rogue neighbor. They were fighting public opinion. Emails poured in. Supporters drove by just to see it. Some even left offerings, plastic scarabs, tiny scrolls, a single bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. Karen was livid. But I wasn't done yet. Because I had one last secret chamber beneath the pyramid. One that held my final trump card. A place she couldn't reach, couldn't report, and could never truly understand. A truth buried deeper than the foundation. And I was ready to unleash it. The thing about pyramids that most people forget is this. They don't just rise, they descend. You see the towering apex above the sand, sure. But the real power? The secrets? They're buried below. Tombs, chambers, passageways, places built for eternity. And when Karen threatened the surface, I knew it was time to open what lay beneath. While she held emergency HOA meetings and scribbled passive-aggressive notes on neon paper, I slipped away in the dead of night with a pickaxe, a flashlight, and a Bluetooth speaker blasting Egyptian flute music. What started as a symbolic structure had become a spiritual excavation. Beneath the limestone blocks, I dug down, 6 feet, then 12, until I hit compacted clay. Then I found it. A vault. Not a real Egyptian one, obviously. I built it myself with reinforced concrete, lined with faux sandstone panels from a film prop warehouse in Nevada. It even had a secret sliding door with a pressure trigger. Inside, a throne, a replica Ankh, and on the walls, hand-painted glyphs I copied from the Book of the Dead, modified to tell my own story. This was no longer just about rebellion. It was ritual. I called it the Chamber of Intention. Every morning before sunrise, I descended with a candle and sat on the throne in silence, meditating, visualizing, planning. The world above was full of rules and politics, but down here, in this quiet cradle of stone and flame, I remembered what power feels like, and Karen could sense it. The more I tapped into the underground chamber's energy, the more unhinged she became. I was no longer just a neighbor with a controversial lawn project. I was the pharaoh she couldn't dethrone. She started pacing up and down the sidewalk, demanding that other neighbors sign petitions. Some did, out of fear. Others smiled at me in secret, slipping notes into my mailbox. Keep building. This place needs something real. Don't let her crush your vision. We believe in the pyramid. Rise, Pharaoh. The HOA escalated. They brought in code enforcers. 3 guys in hard hats showed up with clipboards, tape measures, and a weirdly nervous energy, like they'd heard tales of a cursed monument and were here to confirm if the legends were true. They knocked. I opened the door in a linen robe and gold sash I bought online, purely for the vibe. The lead inspector cleared his throat. We've received multiple complaints about, unpermitted excavation and sculpture installations. I nodded. Would you like to see the chamber? They hesitated, then nodded. I led them through the pyramid's entrance, lined with torches now because why not, and down the spiral stairway into the cool depths. As the flickering candlelight bounced off the glyphs, the air shifted. Something ancient echoed off those fake stone walls. I watched as their tough guy demeanor melted. Whoa, one whispered. Is this real? Real enough to change people, I said. I offered them water from a stone jug. They sipped. We sat. I talked about meaning, about how modern life was draining purpose from men and women alike. How the HOA's obsession with conformity was a kind of spiritual rot, and how this place, this structure, was a monument to remembering who we were before we started asking for permission to live. They left in silence. 2 days later, the inspection report came back. No actionable violations discovered. Owner's project falls within artistic and religious expression boundaries. Case closed. I framed that letter and mounted it on the Sphinx's paw. Karen lost her mind. The next morning, she was on my lawn again, but this time, she didn't come alone. She brought the HOA president, the city council liaison, and a lawyer wearing a necktie with tiny eagles on it. They formed a semicircle around me while I watered the sand in front of the pyramid, a symbolic ritual I picked up from a documentary. It keeps the dust from disrespecting the gods. Karen snapped her fingers. This ends today. The HOA president, a guy named Mark who looked like he gave up on joy in 2009, stepped forward. We're here to notify you that you are being officially sued for public nuisance, zoning violations, and threatening the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood. I stared at the papers. Zoning violations? Karen hissed. This isn't Egypt. This is a family community. And what do you think Egypt was? I said. It was built by families, for generations, with purpose, with vision. The lawyer cleared his throat. You'll have 30 days to dismantle everything or face escalating fines and possible court action. I nodded slowly. You're right. I need to respond properly. They smirked. That was their mistake. Because they thought I meant legally. I meant ceremonially. That night, I climbed to the top of the pyramid with a staff I carved from driftwood. I lit a brazier. Neighbors gathered, drawn by curiosity and candlelight. Karen watched from her porch, trembling with fury. And then I gave the speech. It was part performance, part prophecy. I spoke of lost cultures, of creativity suffocated by HOA bylaws, of modern people walking through life like sleepwalkers, begging for blandness, fearing color, fearing greatness. I called the pyramid a mirror, and the Sphinx a guardian of forgotten courage. I ended with this. They may try to tear this down, but they'll never unbuild what it awakened in you. Applause. Real, thunderous applause. Even Mark, the HOA president, lowered his head. Something shifted. But the war wasn't over. Not yet, because Karen wasn't done fighting. And neither was I. 30 days. That's how long the lawsuit gave me to dismantle the pyramid, silence the Sphinx, and erase every trace of what I'd built from this sterile suburban landscape. 30 days to surrender, but surrender isn't in the language of kings. While Karen celebrated prematurely with her HOA allies, handing out smug flyers and trying to get her little crusade featured in the neighborhood newsletter, I dug deeper, not just into the earth beneath my monument, but into the story behind it. Into the soul of what it all meant. Because when you build something with heart, it doesn't stay just yours. It spreads, infects others with courage. My neighbors, those who once mowed their lawns in fearful silence, began to change. Greg from across the street put up a stone obelisk in his yard. Just art, he claimed with a wink. Jasmine down the block painted her garage door gold and said it was in honor of Ra. Kids drew hieroglyphs in chalk on the sidewalks. Something was happening. Karen called it a neighborhood-wide descent into madness. I called it a reawakening. But day 29 came, and with it, the bulldozers. Real ones. Brought in by the city at the HOA's request. The permit had been expedited. Karen stood there in full HOA regalia, arms crossed like she was about to watch Rome burn. And I stood in silence, wearing my linen robe, hands behind my back, staring at the pyramid as if I were a general before the final battle. The operator of the bulldozer, a young guy named Ricky, walked up nervously. You really want me to do this? Do you? He looked back at the pyramid. Feels wrong. It is. He paused. Then said, They're threatening my job. I nodded. Then do what you have to. He climbed into the machine. The engine roared. Karen grinned. And then, the Sphinx lit up. I had rigged it with motion sensors and a hidden sound system. The moment the bulldozer came within 10 feet, the eyes flared crimson and a deep, thunderous growl blasted from its chest. The bulldozer stopped. Everyone froze. Karen shouted, Turn that off! But then came the voice. A low, ancient tone, half Egyptian priest, half Morgan Freeman, boomed out from the Sphinx's mouth. Behold the guardian! Trespassers shall not desecrate the monument! People screamed. Some ran. Even the HOA lawyer dropped his latte. And Ricky? He killed the engine, climbed down and said, Nah, man, I'm not touching that thing. I respect whatever that is. Karen turned purple. This is a stunt! She screeched. It's art, I replied. She lunged for the pyramid, climbing the first few stones like some angry possum trying to reclaim its territory. "You will not win." That's when it happened. The wind picked up. Clouds gathered. Thunder rolled. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the pyramid was listening. Because at that exact moment, a powerful gust knocked her clipboard from her hands and sent it flying into the Sphinx's paws. It landed perfectly, smack between them, like an offering. Silence fell. Even Karen paused. The Sphinx's eyes turned blue. I didn't even know they could do that. It wasn't programmed. And the voice returned. "The offering is accepted. The pharaoh shall decide her fate." Every head turned to me. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. The robe billowed around my legs. I stood between Karen and the Sphinx, holding her clipboard like it was the key to her soul. "You wanted war," I said. "But you forgot one thing." She glared. "You don't get to bury something that refuses to die." She opened her mouth to speak. I raised a hand. "This pyramid isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who dares to dream louder than the rules tell them to. Everyone who ever picked up a hammer and said, 'I don't need permission to be great.' You want to tear it down?" I pointed to the crowd now gathered behind us. "Then tear them down too." Karen turned and saw the crowd. Dozens, maybe 100. Neighbors, strangers, kids, some holding candles, others wearing bed sheets like togas. Greg with his dog, Jasmine with a tambourine, Ricky with a homemade staff. A community had formed, not around lawn symmetry or mailbox uniformity, but around meaning. Karen was finished. She backed away slowly, muttering about legal escalation and mental instability, but no one was listening anymore. The city withdrew the order. The lawsuit vanished. HOA meetings got mysteriously postponed. And Karen? She moved, put up a for sale sign next to a stack of unmailed complaints, and left without saying goodbye. The pyramid stayed. The Sphinx remained. And in the weeks that followed, it became more than a monument. It became a meeting ground, a place where kids told stories and neighbors played music under the stars. People left notes in the chamber of intention, wishes, confessions, manifestations. One note simply said, "Thank you for reminding me I'm not small." That one hit me hard. Because this all started with a single shovel in the dirt, with one man deciding he didn't need approval to build something sacred. So if you're out there, staring at your version of an HOA, a Karen, or some invisible rule that says you need permission to be bold, listen closely. You don't. Build your pyramid. Unleash your Sphinx. Let the world deal with the roar.